Okay, here we are. Happy summer solstice. We are here with a little bit of a delay, but we are here nonetheless. So if I kept you waiting today, I apologize, but I promised I will get you all started today, and here we are. So, many of you who are going to be here with me live know what's happening. Many of you may not know what's happening today. So let me just take a couple of minutes and catch you all up on what we're going to be doing today and over the next 7 weeks. So I teach this course essentially one-on-one on Zoom. I have students who actually attend with me. And not one-on-one, in person is what I meant. And one of the things that I've started to realize is how necessary this work is for all of us. I don't care who you are, how old you are, where you're from, what your economic status, what your marital status is, where you are in your life. Every one of us at some point in our life has had trauma, and we've been traumatized. And one of the things that we don't learn is how to deal with these traumas and how to heal from them. And one of the reasons that I love the chakra system, aside from the traditional Vedic definitions of the chakras, is the applications we can have today to use this as a method of checking in with ourselves and checking in ourselves at different levels. And all of these levels support each other and are built up on top of each other. That's the beauty and the completeness of the chakra system. So over the next 7 weeks, this is the journey that I would like for all of us to go through. This was kind of my first journey of self-exploration, and I found it really, really helpful, and I've done it multiple times since, of course, sometimes with students, sometimes not. I still go back from time to time to different compositions that I'm going to take you guys through. Some of these are going to look really, really familiar. But this is going to be a good way of not only just taking you on a journey, but really showing you how you can use this art in order to really express yourself and create anything that you want in your life. To me, this type of art really is magic. You are creating your own magic, and these are the tools. Once you get an idea, once you get an inspiration, you can bring it down with very simple geometry with just a few lines on a piece of paper. You can really create the kind of change you want to see in yourself and in the world around you. So let's talk a little bit about the chakra system. So the chakra comes to us from Vedic ideology, which is Indian religions. And it talks about there being 7 specific energy centers within the body. They are divided into the 3 lower energy centers or lower chakras, which represent our physical existence. And then there's the 3 higher chakras, which represents our ethereal or energetic being. And the 2 of them come together in heart center. Right? So this is why in yoga a lot you will see heart center being the place that we place a lot of mudras and we put a lot of emphasis. Because it is the connecting point of the physical being with the metaphysical being. And all of us have both aspects to us. So to me, what is really, really, really important about the chakra system, more than just knowing where they're located and what they stand for and all of that, is understanding that this is a bottom to top energy center that fills from the bottom to the top. Okay? So this energy center needs to fill up from the bottom. So we can't start working on higher energy centers if the energy center below it is empty. Okay, so we need to work on this from the bottom up and build this energy from the bottom up and come up from the bottom and build this on a stable foundation. And that's the point of the root chakra. So today what I want to do is every week we're going to go through this 3-step process. We're going to go together and I'm going to introduce you to the chakra, tell you what its energy is, tell you where it's located, what the purpose of it is. And as we do this, we're actually going to draw the symbol of the chakra itself. So we're going to do this in each session. In a second, I'm going to get up and let that dog out because she's going to drive me crazy. So we're going to draw the symbol first, and then in the next session, we're going to release any blockages that we see. So I'm going to take you through a meditation, take you to that specific chakra that now you know things about, and sit you in a place of observation and see what comes up for you. So in the first time we do this, we're then going to release anything that comes up. The second time that we do this with the purpose of programming what we want to feel in that space. Okay, so we're going to have both types of meditation. We're going to have a surrender meditation with it, and we're also going to have a programming meditation. So, today we're going to start from the root chakra, and actually it's a good idea for me to just keep you on the paper because you don't need to be seeing me anymore. We're going to talk about the actual composition now. So, the chakra system starts from the root. The root chakra is called Muladhara. Mula means the root, literally, and Adhara means a base or a support system. You will see that every time that we start these compositions, the ones where we're drawing the symbol for each chakra, I'm going to start them with 2 little circles penciled in as my guidelines, okay? Because all of the chakras are circular and they are all in forms of lotuses. And so I'm going to use the inner circle as the center of the lotus and the outer circle as my guide for the petals. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to use them in a second. But I'm going to ignore them later, right? So if you want to, you can do the same thing, but you will see me start every session with these 2 already in place. So I'm not going to explain about them or talk about them in future sessions. So the Muladhara is the foundation of our energy body. So it is the place where our energetic body attaches to our physical self, to our physical body. And it is red because it represents the color of blood. Think of it as kind of the energetic place where your blood gets oxygenated. I know it's technically not the case. I know that happens in the lungs. But that idea of the meeting place of air or things that are intangible with the tangible part of the body. The anchoring of the intangible part of you into the tangible physical part of you is the root chakra. Right? Because you as a person experience yourself as 2 entities at the same time. You have a physical body which you're aware of, and you also have a psychological and ethereal and non-physical body and cognition and existence that you understand and you experience. So those 2 are happening simultaneously. So the place that anchors or connects your physical body and your breath and your metaphysical and your soul is the root chakra. It's not surprising that then the element for this chakra is going to be earth, right? Because it is the place where we materialize, where we become a body, where we become somebody, right? So the earth in elemental magic, in elemental theory, represents everything that is of physical nature, right? So everything that is tangible, everything that you can build upon, everything that is solid, everything that has mass, that is all represented by the earth energy and the earth element in the 4 elements. So the element for the root chakra is earth. So it's very practical, right? It is the first of the three lower or the three body chakra or energy centers. And so it is really, really important for us to feel and be connected to our physical existence, right? One of the criticisms that I have to a lot of the spiritual talks that I see these days is this constant talk about transcending the self, going beyond the self, being more than the physical body, than this human existence, transcending our human existence. Whereas the whole point of this life, of this cycle, is this experience of you as a human being. And so this entire experience that you're having needs to actually be anchored in the idea of embodiment, of making all of these things that could be potentials into physical reality. And that happens at the root. That happens at the base. Okay? So the symbol for the root chakra, this is where we start drawing. Of course, all the chakras are circular because they're energy centers, and circles have no beginning and no end. And so the symbol for the root chakra is also a circle. That I like to neurograph my circles. Okay, so the center is a circle. It's actually a lotus, and this lotus has 4 petals. Okay, now for me, I will tell you what the 4 petals represent, but you can draw this in 2 ways. You can have your petals pointing to the 4 cardinal directions, or you can draw your petals with them pointing to the secondary directions. Okay, so start them from cardinal directions and have them point. I like them pointing at the cardinal directions. So I like to draw them something like this. And I said the second circle I was using as a guide for the tips to my petals. And that's what I meant. Okay? So, as always, I'm going to neurograph my petals. The idea here is actually not perfection. The idea here is for you to connect to these 4 aspects of you. Every one of us is made up of these 4 aspects. There are different ways of looking at what these are, but the ones that I like the most, there's 2 of them, is this idea of either them representing the actual elements, and this is why I like them pointing at the cardinal directions, because then the top petal pointing north is going to be earth. The one pointing east is going to be the sun. Okay. The one pointing south is going to be air. And the one pointing west is going to be water. So the 4 elements. Okay, so they either represent the 4 elements, or they can represent the mind, intellect, consciousness, and ego. So the 4 different levels of being. Okay, Because I work a lot with astrology and tarot and all of these other things that work on the 4 elements, I'm more comfortable with that. That's just my preference, but whatever works for you is absolutely fine. Okay. Now, inside of this four-petaled lotus, and actually each one of these in Sanskrit actually has a vowel attached to them, right? So they go va, sha, shai, and sa, and they stand for greatest joy, natural pleasure, delight in controlling passion, and blissfulness in concentration. So they each have, from either the Sanskrit version or the elemental version, they stand for these different aspects and different parts of what makes us us, which also brings up this idea that we are multidimensional. At the core of us, we are multidimensional. We are not supposed to be one way and one person and one personality. There's different aspects to us. There's different parts to us. We are parts of an entire whole. Okay? At the very beginning, at the very base, you are a whole, not a singular being. Now, there's also symbology in the center of the lotus, and that includes a square, and a down-turning triangle, or downward-facing triangle. Okay. What do these symbolize? Much like the way we use it in neurographic art, the square in the center is talking to you about stability. It is about foundation. It is about this being the foundation of everything you do. So embodiment, being in the body, being connected to your physical self is the basis of everything that you do in your life. And then the downward triangle, the downward pointing triangle, is talking about being grounded. No matter what happens in life, staying grounded, staying connected to the body, not dissociating. Because that is the easiest thing that can happen when something bad happens to us. We can dissociate. In extreme cases, it's almost like we have had people talking about dissociating to the point where they feel like they're having an out-of-body experience. Right? So in order for you to really be effective in life, to be in control in life, to be the co-creator of your life, you really need to remain grounded. You really need to remain attached to this physical existence that you have. Okay? There's also a seed mantra, or a person-looking thing in the center of the root chakra. And it's literally talking about the fact that this space, it looks something like this. So it means that energetically, this is the seat of where all of your energy, your life force energy comes from. Okay, it looks something like that. It literally looks like a seat, like somewhere you have a seat in. This is the seat of the Kundalini. It is the seat of the essential energy in your life that you are meant to cultivate, to grow, and to make flourish. And you will see as we go along each week, there will be more petals to this flower. So at the very basic at the very basis of it, what you need to master it are these 4 different aspects or 4 different skills to being a human being. And once you've mastered this, there will be 2 more petals, and then more petals, and then more petals, and then you'll see by the time we get to the crown, it's infinite petals. But at the very base of it, we get to have a clear understanding of our physical existence, which is Earth. That includes everything from your body to your health to your wealth to the legacy you leave behind to your family. All of this is the Earth aspect of your being. Okay? The fire aspect, which is East, which is the sun. Okay? This represents your passions in life, your creativity, everything you create, everything you want to do, everything that inspires you, everything that makes your neurons fire, the electricity that runs, everything that makes you excited, right? Also things that make you excitable and learning to actually control our passions or to continue our passions. Okay, air is your element of mental capacities or logic. So we need to learn how to think. We need to learn how to be analytical. Okay, and of course, water is all about our emotions. We need to learn how to control the ocean of emotion that is our being. So that's the very foundation of what it takes to be a human, what it takes to be a whole person. Okay, this is also in the body. This is where the 3 main energy centers or nadis start from the Vedic perspective, and in traditional Chinese medicine, it's actually where the main 2 channels that also run qi, or the source energy inside your body start, the do and run. They actually start in the midsection of your body, and one of them starts, one of them ends in the root chakra. Okay. Physically, the location of the root chakra is in your perineum, so midway between your bum and your pee hole. Okay, so that's the physical point of activation, but the actual node itself, the actual chakra itself, is near the coccygeal plexus. So it's at the very end of your tailbone. Okay. So this is why it's important for you to have a strong pelvic floor, because that's where that energy center is. Okay. Now, the most important thing that you need to know about the root chakra and the way that we're going to use it moving forward is this concept, is the mantra of this chakra. Every energy center in our body actually has a definition, has a mantra, has a saying, has a guidance to us. And the guidance and the function of the root chakra is the mantra, I am. That's it. I am. No more, no less. It deals with the foundational thoughts and beliefs around our ability to feel safe in our own bodies, in our own families, in our relationships, and at home. The most important thing about this chakra, about all of our existence, is this idea of being safe inside our own bodies. There are a lot of us who have forgotten at some point in our life what it feels like to be safe in our bodies. for a lot of women especially, this is not something that we remember anymore. And it is really, really important for us to be able to have a moment of observation, to be able to look within, and to be able to find a moment of peace and safety inside the body. And so that's exactly what we're going to try to do tomorrow when we do the meditation and then come out and release anything that comes up. Today, I just want to introduce you to the energy of this and the ideology behind this chakra and get you familiar with everything that it stands for. Okay? Now, part of the energy of this chakra and part of the idea of the mantra of I am safe is this idea of being enough, being good enough, and being grounded in who we are. Okay, so because I want to start talking a little bit more about this, and I want to do this as we're rounding this, I'm going to tell you the last little instructions or suggestions I have for you for drawing this, and then as we round the work, I'm going to give you a little bit more about the root chakra. If you have any questions at any point, if you're watching this live, feel free to put it in the chat now. Later on, if you're watching this on a replay, put it in the comments and I will come back and I will do my best to answer your questions. Okay, now, like I said, this is the foundation of who we are and what we want to do. And so one of the things that I like to do is I always like to have energy moving out of my work. I don't like having anything that isn't connected with neurographic lines. Now, you have a couple of other options. You have a couple of different options. You can either draw kind of lines throughout the work from one side to the next, up, down, whichever one you like. Or what I like to do is I like to take the very tips of the lotus petals, and I like to bring them out in lines. Again, you don't have to double up your lines if you don't want to. I just like them to have a lot of movement and a lot of energy moving through them. That one was not a very good line. That's okay. Okay, so once you have this is pretty much all the composition we have. You can spend some time rounding it. You, again, don't have to round all of the intersections if you don't want to, but because the rounding or the connecting part is the part that allows me to really connect to the concept, I like to round all the intersections. So feel free to do this for as long as you want, but I'm just going to talk more about this chakra and this feeling and my experiences with it as I round my composition. So let's talk about this feeling of safety that we all need to have. At one point or another in our life, we have all experienced some kind of insecurity. Some people experience more of it, some people experience less of it, but we've all had this moment of not feeling safe. And when that happens, we lose our connection to our body. The more often you don't feel safe, the more tenuous your relationship becomes with your body. And a lot of us also have very negative body images. There are multi-billion-dollar industries dedicated to us actually not having good relationships with our bodies. Whether we are male or female, it makes no difference. There's the nutrition industry. There is the fitness industry, there's the cosmetics industry, and the cosmetic surgery industry. There's at least 4 different industries dedicated to us not feeling good and safe in our own bodies. Because the less safe we feel in our body, the less we feel good inside our own bodies as we are, the less worthy we feel, the more controllable we are, the more reactive we are. Fear is the thing that weakens and opens in a bad way your root chakra. What you want is your chakra to be closed. Your root chakra wants to be full. So you don't want to have insecurities. When you have fear, your root chakra is literally like a sphincter. If it opens up, because it's at the bottom, it will literally release all of your energy. It will release it out of you. It will not release it into you being able to build the kind of life you want to experience. So, and that's insecurity. When we are insecure, when we are afraid, in fact, if you are afraid enough to put your body into a fight or flight zone, you no longer have access to the part of your brain that allows you to make good, rational decisions. You end up making snap judgments with the part of your brain designed for rapid response and for anger, and not for really thinking things through. And then the consequences of those actions become much bigger than what you would have had you had access to the reasoning center of your brain. So the more afraid you are, the less empowered you are, the more reactive you are. You are not responsive, but you are reactive. There's a major difference between these two. When you are reacting, what you're doing is almost automatic. When you are responding, you are in a position to take in all of the data around you and available to you, and then make the reasoned, measured response to that. That's what it means to be responsible. It means to have the ability to respond, not react. When we are in a reactive mode, we don't have the ability to respond. So we react quickly and we react harshly. This is what we do a lot of the time in our relationships when we are, especially romantic relationships, when we are insecure. Your partner can say a completely innate comment and you take it as an attack and you pick a fight because your perception is that you were just attacked. Right? This is what insecurity does. Whereas if you were in a more secure moment or in a secure relationship, that could prompt a conversation. Hey, honey, did you mean this? No, actually I didn't. I just meant that. Oh, okay. And that's the end of that. But when we are insecure, when we hold negative beliefs about ourselves that others can then validify for us, or validate, that's the word I'm looking for, validate for us externally, whether they mean to or not, that's the completely different thing. When we have these beliefs internally, then we also have the ability to be hurt by it. Okay, we also have the ability to perceive things that are not there. So that's why it is so important for us to have a good connection to our root chakra. That's why it is so important for us to feel safe, for us to feel enough, for us to feel at home with who we are in any given moment. Because you don't really ever want to react. You don't want to be in a position of having to respond quickly without consideration. And the place that allows you the peace and the quiet to go into the position of observer instead of the actor in your life is the root chakra. If you are grounded enough you will be able to actually step back no matter what is happening in a moment of panic, and you will be able to stay calm, and you will be able to handle it in the best way possible. So one of the things that's really interesting is that even though the element of this chakra is earth, it is ruled by the planet Mars, which is the planet for anger, which is so fitting because for most of us, anger is the first thing that comes up when we are insecure. Because anger is a boundary emotion. When we hold an internal pain or an internal negative belief and someone triggers it and someone activates that, the best thing we can do, the most effective thing most of us have learned to do, is to react out of anger and get that stimulus to go away from us. Get away from me. Get away from hurting me. This hurts. I don't like the way this feels. And so we react with anger. But anger is a surface emotion. Right? Anger is a boundary setting emotion. There's always a real reason. There's something else sitting beneath that anger. It can be disappointment, it can be sadness, it can be isolation, it can be a multitude of things. But when we are insecure, and it's not a fault, right? I'm not saying that when we are insecure, we act out of anger because this is a bad thing or this is something that you should judge yourself for or look down at yourself for. It is literally the way your brain is wired. I just explained. When you get angry, when you go into fight or flight, when you get really scared or really triggered, it is your brain stem. It is your reptilian brain. That is reacting to the situation. It is literally a different part of your brain. It is your medulla oblongata that is actually reacting in that moment. And it is literally sitting on top of your spine. So your brain hasn't even had the opportunity for the data to move into your prefrontal cortex in the front, right behind your forehead. When your medulla oblongata reacts, when your reptilian brain reacts. Right? Some of the most self-preserving movements in your body are not even controlled by the brain. If you, for example, put your hand on a hot surface, by the time that the heat is sensed by your spinal cord, the spinal cord itself sends a message to the hand that says, hey, take this off the heat. I don't like what you're doing. And then the brain goes, oh, wait, there was something hot. What was that? And you look down to see what it was. Right? So sometimes your body, the system that you are designed into, doesn't even give you the opportunity to digest a certain set of information. It just reacts. So the point is for you to have a longer fuse before you go into automatic responses. And the more secure you feel inside yourself, the more calm you feel, the more grounded you feel, the more sure you are of yourself, the longer that fuse is going to be. The more hurt we are, the more unheard we are, the more neglected we feel, the more victimized we feel, the shorter that fuse. We quickly go into automatic responses, and automatic responses don't always, or usually actually, produce good results. So it's really, really, really important for us to have control over our sense of security and our body. And what's really interesting is the thing that in our body allows us to know that we are really afraid is our heart rate and our breath. As soon as you get scared and we switch into fight or flight, the first thing that happens is that your breathing becomes shallower and faster. You start to hyperventilate, and your heart starts to pump faster because you're about to get ready to run away from something. And it's really, really interesting that your breath is the only involuntary function in your body that you have somewhat of a voluntary control over. And the reason for that is because it is the switch that allows you to open and close your root chakra. When your heart rate goes up and your breath is shallow and fast, your root chakra is wide open. Your energy is not accumulating inside of you in a way that is productive. It is leaving you. But your energy, your chakra can actually be open even when your heart rate or your breathing rate is not rapid and shallow. The more insecure we feel in life, the more we feel like we need to be in people pleasing, the more we have a hard time standing in our own power, the more disempowered we are and the more open that energy center is. And so the energy of us is not able to build up for us to get to the next chakra, which is the point of creation and then sustenance and so on and so forth. Okay? So as you do this work and work on this symbol, I really want you to really ask yourself, how safe do you feel in your body? How safe do you feel at home with your family, with the closest love relationships that you have? Do you feel accepted? Do you feel like you belong? Because that sense of belonging is one of the keys to having a balanced root chakra. How critical are you of yourself and of your body? You know, there are a lot of people, especially women, who don't like their bodies to the point where they don't even look at themselves when they want to go take a shower. And that's because we are living in a culture that is providing a beauty standard that is not realistic. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It's not natural. And it is not really a universal beauty standard. The truth of the matter is every single person is a different body. And we all have different shapes, we all have different sizes, we all have different ways that our body processes matters and information, whether it be food or other physical things we come across with. Our body synthesizes things differently. Some of us have allergies, some of us don't. Some of us have certain preferences, some of us don't. Right? Every single person is different. Every single body is different. That's the beauty of creation. It is so creative that it will never create the same thing twice. Even identical twins are not completely identical. Because in the universe, there is no redundancy. It will create something new every single time because it needs to find out real data about each of them every single time. So we're not all supposed to be the same. We're not all supposed to look the same. We're not all supposed to feel the same. We're not all supposed to have the same things in life that make us happy, the same values, the same thought processes, the same religions. We're not supposed to be the same. We are not supposed to assimilate to each other. We are supposed to recognize each other's differences and celebrate them and use them in order to become better societies and better species. This is the law of nature, right? The more varied your gene pool is, the better the offspring is going to be for the next few generations. So we are not supposed to assimilate, and yet we are living in societies that expect us to assimilate, that do things like expect you to accept judgment of an external force or an external source. From the time we are very, very young kids, we are put into school. And not only do we learn reading and writing and math and arithmetics and so on and so forth in school, we also learn that in society there is somebody with authority external to us that will decide our proximity to this ideal perfection and therefore our proximity to resources we need for our life. It's the teacher. We are taught through standardized testing that perfection exists and that it is in fact attainable. But whether or not you have achieved it is not something, or attained it is not something you decide. It is decided by a force external to you. It is the teacher who decides. And so by the time we get out of school and we get into society at large, we have internalized this idea of constantly being measured and being judged by external sources. So when we leave school, it is our boss. Once we get married, it's our family and friends and neighbors that decide how good our relationships are. It's your boss that decides how well you're doing at work. It's not about how fulfilled you feel or how good you're doing. It's the boss that decides when you get a raise or not. So you're always pleasing someone outside of yourself. We almost forget about the fact that we should be looking at ourselves and what we want and what our talents are and what our needs are. This idea of attaching your self-worth to your net worth is one of the things that is definitely going to be detrimental to your root chakra. Because by the virtue of you being alive, by the virtue of you being a breathing, living organism, you are incredibly valuable. Because you are incredibly rare. With everything we know from science, we know that matter makes up only 4% of the entire universe that we know. 96% of it is energy. It's not even matter. And when I talk about matter, I talk about all of the matter, all of the atoms and electrons and neutrons and protons and that clump together to create our entire galaxies and universe, physical universe. all of that is only 4% of the entire universe. And then we are these sentient, breathing, living, organic matter that lives for a few years, which is a flash in a pan. And so we are incredibly rare. And as far as we know, we are the only ones of our type in this entire universe so far. Even if there's other life out there, we don't know that they're going to be exactly like us. So by the virtue of you being a living, breathing, sentient being, you are incredibly valuable and incredibly rare. And yet most of us, we feel completely worthless if we can't hold a proper 9-to-5 job, if we can't pay our way, if in fact we are living in societies where we need to pay to have a roof over our head. We are the only species on this planet that needs to pay to live on it, not just hunt for food. No bird during nesting season actually needs to go to a mortgage broker to see whether or not they can build a nest. They use the resources of this earth to build themselves whatever, and their families, whatever nest they need. Same with any other species on the face of this planet. We are the only species that has created this story called money. And we have attached so much of the worth of everything on this planet to this story, where the real worth of everything, of a tree, of a mouse, of even a lowly cockroach or a human being, has nothing to do with money. It is not replaceable with money. It is not measurable in money. And yet for so many of us, a good life revolves around money. How much money do I have? How much money can I make? How much money can I spend? How much money can I leave behind? And we think the more money we have, the more what do these boys call them? High net worth individuals? No, honey, your worth has nothing to do. Your self-worth has nothing to do with random numbers made up on a screen somewhere. This is what we need to understand. This is what we need to come back to as a society. That what matters is you as a human being. Every single breath that you take is incredibly precious. Your life is the most precious thing on the face of this planet. It will never repeat again. And yet we are living in societies where we are trained from a very early age that we are on this earth to use this precious breath to create profits for a select few. And we're okay with that. We'll go to work 9 to 5. And then we'll come home and bring some work home with us as well. We're living in societies where 2-income families can barely make ends meet. So the whole point of creating a family is to create more workers for the future economy. You can't even have one or both parents stay in the household long enough to teach their children. Very quickly, the children are put into the system. They're put into kindergartens and then school and then high school and then university. And of course, this becomes the factory of creating insecure worker bees that are constantly looking to please the system so that they may gain some access to the basic necessities of life. This is why we all need to work on our root chakra. Because we are told every single day that someone else outside of us determines our worth. And for so many of us, that's a real experience of life. It is true. If you're living in certain parts of this world and you are a woman, you literally are a second-class citizen. I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into But just look at the state of affairs anywhere in the world, even in the developed world, even in the Western free world. Look at what is happening in the world right now. Look at the value of a human life right now. Look at how easily certain people can justify taking of a human life. We are not worthless. Human beings are not worthless unless they produce for an economic system. Every single one of us, as a human being, as a living, breathing creature, is incredibly valuable. We are all precious, every single one of us, no matter how able or disabled or differently abled we are. The most revolutionary thing you can do on the face of this planet is to love yourself unconditionally. Because then you are empowered. If you recognize that your worth is in the fact that the divine is making something real through you. You are part of the process of co-creation. Your existence is necessary so that you can have an imagination through which the divine creates all of these things that haven't been there before. Look at us. Look at us as little pieces of consciousness, as little pieces of divine. Look at in the last 100 years how many things we have created and how much we have evolved just in the last 100 years. That's the value of humanity. That's the value of who you are. It is your unique perspective in this world. It is your unique talents. It is the things you like, the way you like them, the way you want things to be, the imagination that you have that nobody else has. The voice that you have that nobody else has, the talents that you have, whether artistic or intellectual or what mechanical or whatever it may be. There is not another one of you in this universe, and there never will be. You are valuable for all of the potential that is inside of you, like a seed inherent inside of you from the moment you are just a few cells. Those few cells are incredibly valuable. I've studied Chinese medicine with specialization in fertility, so trust me when I say the fact that women can get pregnant is a miracle. The number of hormones that need to work together properly in the proper time, everything needs to happen in complete lockstep in order for you to have conception. The fact that this happens without us even thinking about it is a miracle. That's valuable. Not how much money you have in your account, not how big your house is, not how many cars you have, not what brand you wear. None of that matters. A lot of people with health issues or fertility issues will tell you money is no object. Money doesn't mean anything when the natural things that make us human don't work properly. So everything that is valuable about you is already inside of you, and it has always been, and it will always be. The only question is, do you have access to it? Are you aware of it? Are you in touch with yourself enough to know who you are? Not who you were taught to be, not who you were expected to be, not who other people wanted you to be, but what you are. Every single one of us as a human being is a seed of potential. This is why there's 4 aspects to us. Every single one of us has different emotional talents, physical talents, creative talents, and mental talents. Every single one of us We cognate things differently. We understand things differently. You and I can hear or see the same thing and have two completely different stories about it. And that's what the universe needs, and that's what the universe wants. And that's why we're here. To turn potentials into actualities. In the realm, in the pleroma, in the realm of probabilities and possibilities, everything is possible. It is only in the realm of physical existence, dependent upon space-time, that reality happens. We can only have reality when we have space-time constraints. When you take a snapshot of a moment. And the fact that you have the potential to change what that snapshot is what makes you valuable. The fact that your imagination is the energy that the universe uses in order to co-create and create new things that were never there before is what makes you valuable. Not your specialization in life, not your job, not the number of the numbers in your bank account. Not the number of properties you own, not the number of islands you own, not the number of... It is not about the numbers. It is about your potential. And it is about how well you fulfill those potentials. Do you have the courage to go after your talents, your wants, your desires? Or will you do the safe thing? Or will you conform to what society wants from you and then have a midlife crisis when you are 50 years old going, hey, I've spent the majority of my life trying to please other people who don't even think about me for a second. If you really want to know how cruel and cold this world can be, and how if you don't appreciate yourself, no one else will, look at how quickly a corporation that you may have worked your entire life for will replace you if, God forbid, you die tomorrow. Your position will be filled within the next 30 days, if not the next week. The corporation is not going to care. You know who will care? Your loved ones, your friends, the people who had a real emotional connection to you. Not the people who paid you month to month to live paycheck to paycheck and barely be able to feed yourself and the people that you love and actually have a connection with. For the people who have an emotional connection to you, nothing in this world would replace you. Your empty spot in their heart and in their existence will go on forever. But to the corporate overlords or to the people that you work for or work with, those people will replace you within 30 days. And you'll be forgotten so fast. I experienced this firsthand. The dearest, nearest person to me was my aunt. And she was a chartered accountant. And she passed away, unfortunately, right in the middle of tax season. And even though she wasn't there, the taxes for every single one of her clients got filed that year. For me, my life would never be the same again. But for the Canada Revenue Agency, not a beat was missed. Because the Canada Revenue Agency doesn't care about my aunt. Doesn't care about the one person in my life that taught me unconditional love. The one person in the world that taught me beauty is everywhere you look for it. That people are valuable, that people are beautiful. The world didn't care about that. The sun had the audacity to rise the next morning and every morning after. But I will never experience my aunt again. I would give anything in this world to have her open the door one more time and greet me. It's been almost a decade since she's gone, and I still can't talk about her without tearing up. The value of her life is in these emotions in me today, right now, is in the son she left behind. Not in what she did for society, not in what she did that made her money, not about however money she had in her bank account when she left. So the reason we need to come back to our roots, the reason we need to come back to ourselves is because we need to recognize that no matter where you are in your life right now, no matter what decisions you have made, no matter whether you feel successful or you don't, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is you recognize that you are valuable right now as you are. And you are safe. You have always been safe. There are a lot of us who will go through traumatic experiences, and when you hear me say this, you may actually have a physical or visceral reaction. Aside from just your mind telling me, oh no, there have been times in my life where I clearly was not safe. I'm here to tell you, even in those moments, you were safe. There was only a certain amount of harm that came to you. It did not become fatal. And even if it had, death isn't a bad thing. One of the greatest things that I read, I'm the daughter of a nuclear physicist, so I was brought up on the laws of physics, and one of the very first laws of physics is conservation of energy and matter, which says that in this world, the amount of energy and matter that exists is a constant. It is finite. There is a specific amount of matter and energy that exists, that is never born, and it never dies. It is never created, and it never gets disintegrated. It never disappears. So even as a being, as a sentient being right now, I will never be destroyed. You will never be destroyed. We just transform back into our energy bodies. There's a book I love by Neil Donald Walsh called The Conversations with God. And in the very first chapter, he talks about this in this conversation with God, in this imaginary conversation with God, where he says, don't you care what religions we are all using and what we say in your name and how... He goes, listen, for me, you're all my children. And for me, it's like you're all in the backyard playing. When your kids are playing back in the backyard, do you care what stories they make up for themselves or tell each other? No, you don't. It's the same thing for me. You are my children, and nothing bad can happen to you because you are in my backyard. Energetically, even when we die, nothing bad happens to us. We return back to, no matter what your concept is, whether you believe in a specific religion and there's an afterlife idea, or even if you're not, even if you're an atheist and you only believe in energy, then you have to accept that your consciousness is energy. There is general consciousness in this universe as a form of energy, and therefore your body goes back to the earth and it decomposes back into the soil that it came from, and your consciousness goes back to this pool of consciousness, the consciousness that has existed since the beginning of time and will continue to exist. So you will never disappear. There's nothing bad that can happen to you. So you will always be safe. And if you can hold on to this idea and you can hold on to this feeling inside of yourself, and in the moments where you're feeling triggered, you can come back to this feeling of, and finding this space of, I am safe. I am enough. I was, as like Lady Gaga says, I was born this way. I was meant to be the person I am today. Even if I'm completely different from the people who are around me, I was not meant to be like any of them. Recognize the fact that you are meant to be this unique being that is never going to be repeated again. And that's important. One of the things that I love is this idea of probability. If something was probable or more probable, it would have been. It's this idea of if it could have been, it would have been. You could have been, so you are. This bundle of potential. It's like you are a talent or potential battery of life. You have this specific amount of energy inside of you in certain proportions and on certain subjects that is unique. It will never, ever, ever be repeated in this whole world of being ever again. Right? Because again, remember, we are dependent on space-time. So even if another person with your exact set of talent, which is highly unlikely because nature never creates the same thing twice, but even if it did create an identical replica of you, it would be happening in a different space-time continuum, or in a different part of the space-time. And as soon as you change one parameter of a set of facts, you change all the facts. You change the nature of what is being observed. If you know who you are, if you know your own value, then you will not sacrifice yourself to the point where everyone else around you also learns to sacrifice you. If you don't value yourself, we teach other people how to treat us. If you don't value yourself, if you don't stand up for your wants and your desires and the things that are important to you in your life, if you don't do that for you, nobody else will. And not only that, you will continue to have experiences in your life that will validate for you this idea that you are not good enough, that you are not safe, that you are not lovable, so on and so forth. It's because your internal belief is that you will continue to experience that in your life. You will continue to get into relationships, whether work relationships or romantic relationships or friendships, or you will continue to have this experience over and over and over and over again. If you are in an insecure space, and if you are people pleasing, that means you are sacrificing your own wants and needs. And if you're willing to sacrifice yourself, why wouldn't the system? Why wouldn't society? Why wouldn't everybody else? The most revolutionary thing you can do is to heal yourself from the past wounds of your trauma and from the automatic things you have been taught. The subconscious programming that we all got as children. Then you wouldn't judge yourself so harshly. And if anyone else ever tried to judge you, you would not tolerate their judgment. So the last thing we need to do is to color our symbol. Hi. Oh, good. The chat is working. I was wondering why you guys are all quiet today, but okay. So The actual lotus itself is usually red. Because, again, red represents your blood, your oxygenated blood. The place where the air and your physicality meets, right? So this intangible, this thing you can't feel, meets a very tangible, real physical part of you, i.e. the blood cell. Okay. So this is where you're anchored. Hi, Liliana. So, as you do this exercise with yourself, really think about, sorry, one second. Sorry about that. Really think about what all of this means to you. See if you can figure out the moments in your life where you have been people-pleasing other people. See how much of that was because of you and how much of that was because of conditioning. Actually going to fill you in, make it a little darker. See that your relationship with your own body. Do you like yourself? Do you like your body? Do you use these external measures to see how valuable you are? Do you attach your self-worth to your productivity? Do you feel worthless if you're not producing something? Can you rest? Can you be in leisure? Can you just be? Now, the center, oh, one more red. The center square is actually yellow. It represents light. The idea is this is the foundation of your light being inside your physical body. You are a light being. You are a valuable, beautiful, unique creation of the divine, of Mother Nature. I don't care what you call it. And as that, you're incredibly valuable. The most important thing about you is the mere fact of your existence, is that you are. You are safe. You are loved. You are enough. You were born that way, and you will always continue to be that way. That will never change, no matter what. Question is, do you recognize that about yourself? Do you recognize how valuable you are? Do you recognize that if you choose, there is nothing in this world ever that can hurt you? Even the things that hurt you in the past. You have the ability to heal. You have the ability to move on. You have the ability to learn and prevent them from ever happening again. You are infinitely powerful because you are a tiny little piece of divine universal consciousness in a tiny little container called a human being. And as part of that divine, you are incredibly precious. So, I hope that gave you some things to think about and ponder about. Maybe think about this relationship you have with yourself and how everything we talked about reflects with you. Because tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to come and use all of this information, and we're actually going to get rid of any of the beliefs we have in our root chakra that no longer serves our best interest. We need to close this chakra. We need to make this secure so that we can accumulate this source of energy and raise it to creation and sustenance and feeling and understanding and so on and so forth. So in order to do that, in order to make it secure, we need to let go of insecurity. We need to let go of all of the voices along the way that have told us we are not good enough, that have told us we are not safe, that have told us we are only worthy if we are contributing something to society at large, that have told us our worthiness has anything to do with our physical ability, our mental ability, our emotional ability, or our financial ability. Okay? So, I hope you enjoyed the session today. If you have any questions for me, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. Again, I'm sorry we were a little bit late today. I had issues. I had technical issues today, but hopefully they have been resolved, and I should be back here, God's willing. If Mercury doesn't go into some kind of retrograde in the meantime and everything. I'm just joking. All things considered, hopefully I will be back here 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and it just in time for the full moon in Capricorn, which is kind of interesting. Full moon is the time we let go of that which no longer serves us. Capricorn is our legacy. So tomorrow we are letting go of all of those things that we have learned from our legacy, from our culture, from our ancestors that no longer serve us. So we're going to let go of all of that in order to create the legacy we want for next year and for the next generation. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you can connect to your root, to the 4 aspects of you, and to really take a moment of self-consideration and let this all percolate a little bit. And then tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to release all the things that no longer serve us. And the day after that, we'll do some programming. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to me ramble for the past hour and a bit. I look forward to sharing the rest of this journey with you and getting your feedback on how it served you and how it made you feel. But in the meantime, I'm going to let you go, let you rest, make sure you hydrate well after these sessions, and I will see you next time for the next session. Thank you, Liliana. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I will see you tomorrow for the rest of it. Have a good one, everybody.